Conversations across time. 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 Across time. Conversations across time. Conversations across time.
Welcome to Conversations Across Time. I am Vivienne Crawford, your host, and this is the program where historical figures come alive in engaging discussions about the past and its impact on our understanding of the present. Joining us today are former State Representative Babette Josephs.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Seated next to Babette is Levy Flying Eagle Newell III, Vice Chief of the Cherokee Confederation of Southeastern Pennsylvania. Welcome, Chief Levy.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Seated next to Chief Levy is, of course, Christopher Columbus, explorer, navigator, colonizer, and most importantly, the person who is credited with discovering the United States of America. Seated next to Christopher Columbus is Malcolm X. Malcolm X, who is perhaps the seminal figure in defining how African Americans see themselves in the United States today. Welcome, Malcolm.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So I want to start and to ask you a question, Mr. Columbus, in that you were credited with having discovered the Americas. Under what authority did you colonize the United States, or the Americas? I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. It was no United States, it was America. In Spain and in Portugal, everyone was going for land wherever they could find it, and it was important to have land. And I was sent that with the blessings of Ferdinand and Isabella to find a fast route to India, and I did. I go, instead of going this way, I go this way. And I find China, I find Japan. That's okay. But now, you see, the Portuguese are also looking for land, and the Spanish looking for land, and the Portuguese looking for land, saying, give me, I want this land.
I want to just stop you there, because I think it's important for our viewers to understand the Spanish and the Portuguese were looking for land.
Oh, yes.
And they were, of course, considered the powers that controlled the world at that time?
There was no one else. It was only Spain, it was Portuguese. And they're very strong, very strong. So we look and we argue, no, this is mine, no, this is yours. So what happens is this, I find China, I find India in 1492. In 1494, Pope says, we make a treaty. We divide so that you no argue. It's no good to argue. Spain gets this part, and Portugal gets this part. Africa and whatever else we find here, including the islands that I'm finding and the countries that I'm finding, you see.
But I think, and I'm not going to question you. I'm going to allow our guest to challenge you on this, because you said the Pope made the decision.
Oh,
So you're
yeah.
talking about Pope Alexander VI.
I am indeed, yes. The Pope Alexander VI, he makes a treaty called Treaty of Tordesillas. And it is from the Pope, it is from God. Spain shall have this, Portugal shall have this. Europe can be Europe, but new lands, Portugal and Spain, and that was divided. And if we find a Spain, we find land, that is our land.
But this is according to the authority of the Pope.
Yep.
See,
But
but
if I may interject, what I find interesting is that you say that the Pope sent you, but in actuality, as a young child, as a teen, you first went to the seas yourself. You had that adventure in your blood. Didn't you take your plan to the Queen and King yourself in hopes that you would get the support to find this man?
oh, see. I go many places. I go to England. My brother go to England.
Your brother Bartholomew or Diego?
Yes, goes to England, and it makes no difference. We go to see England. You help us. We go to Genoa. We go to Napoli. We go many places.
Matter of fact,
Venezia.
you went to Genoa first, where you're from. You then went to Venice. You then went to Portugal. They all turned you down because they didn't believe that the charts and the nautical charts that you had were in fact actual. You convinced Ferdinand and Isabella that they should take a look at this, and they decided to. But meantime, they were more concerned about what was happening in Africa, if I'm not mistaken, in the Muslim world. But you convinced them that this was a good idea, and they kept you on retainer for that reason.
Well, you see, we wanted to go to India, but India
you never
is
made
this
it
way.
there.
Nah, because
Never
I'm
made it
going
at all.
this way. I find China, I find Japan, I find people I call Indian.
But I want to say this, and I just have to jump in for a moment. When you say I find, as though these places were lost.
To us, they were lost. We did not know.
Yeah, but
Nobody
There
knew.
were people knew. There were people living there. They
You
knew.
say you didn't find us, we found you.
There were people living in these places, and they didn't think they were lost, and they had never heard of the Pope. So why should they care what the Pope thinks?
The Pope could take someone's land and say, it's their land, it's your land, is wrong. The Pope has no right to do that.
Senor,
No person has any right.
the Pope is our authority. We work with the Pope. We work with Ferdinand. We work with
the authority
Isabella.
of the indigenous people of the land.
But it
and
doesn't
regions where you
matter.
landed.
The Pope tells us we divide the world into parts. This is Spain. This is Portugal. Portugal has Africa. We get this world, whatever it is. This is what we do.
According to the Pope.
See.
Why should the Pope have a right?
Why should not? The Pope comes from God. His word is God.
What would have
Is the
happened?
Pope God?
The Pope is not
he
God.
God?
The
Okay.
Pope speaks with and is in line with God. His idea, his saying, his word is our law.
If the people you found had been Christians, would the Pope have said the same thing, do you think?
We don't ask questions.
The Pope is going to make these people Christians, whether they liked it or not, because that's what colonialism is.
That's
correct?
what,
That's exactly
that's what
what it
Pope's are.
But that is Tordesillas. It says, we come, we see, we conquer. It is the way of the world.
Based on having a dominant society with more weapons and guns and ammunition. That is what.
Not more, the only way.
The only that Indians
Only weapons and guns.
It hadn't made it to the Americas at that time.
Exactly.
It was very effective.
Yes,
Certainly it was.
Yes.
yes,
My people.
yes.
Looking back, Chris, would you have taken the exact same routes, looking back, that you have taken? Or would you have done something differently?
I took the trade winds, and the trade winds take me to the island. that I find.
Well, you
and
found-
I take the trade winds back
You
to
found two
Spain
islands.
to say I find these
You found
islands.
two islands that are today known as Haiti and Dominican Republic. You call them, I believe, Hispaniola, and you even carved out a niche and called one area Christmas Town, am I right?
It's possible. I don't remember.
So you're inflicting, again, Catholicism and the beliefs of your Pope on these people.
But the Pope says this is what we do. And there is no question, yes, to take those lands which are now ours. And that is the rule of the Pope. I cannot argue with the Pope. I cannot argue with God. I don't think so. You can argue with God. I don't think you can argue with God either.
As I said, the Pope and God are two different entities.
And in
They're two.
the Old Testament,
Not in Spain. Not in Spain, not in Portugal.
Excuse me for a second. The question, I think what it is, Malcolm, is he doesn't seem to grasp. I think we have to reach a little deeper with him. He doesn't seem to be able to grasp what he did.
Well,
and
it
how
seems to me
affected
that what he
all.
fails to grasp is the arrogance in which he can come upon the people of any land that he sets foot on and determine to those people that how we see fit is the way you are going to worship, the way you are going to live, the way you are going to set up colonization. Your brothers, Bartholomew and Diego, tried to settle Hispaniola, did such a terrible job of that, promising gold and riches and all types of fabrics and silks and whatnot. Queen Isabella and Ferdinand sent an envoy, seeing that had not happened, took you back in chains.
Well, there were some problems, some disagreements, yes, but I come back to Spain.
You lost the majority of your wealth.
I come back to Spain, and I get the money that the Queen says, because we talk, and I say, for you, Isabella, for you, Ferdinand, I do everything. This is not for me.
Not give you
I want to just interject one thing. Babette, how do you feel about Christopher Columbus saying he did this for Isabella?
well, I don't have much sympathy with that, but I find it interesting that a person who spent at least more than half of his career following one religion, one leader, and then repudiated that leader and went on another path should be reproaching Chris here for what would you have done? What would you have done differently, Mr. X?
Being a man of a different conscience and a different religious fever, I would have certainly questioned what the Pope had to say, although I know at that particular time and place in Europe, that was unheard of. The Pope is the Word of God. But I would have had some personal convictions about some of the things. For instance, when you were in Hispaniola and your brothers were running Hispaniola, the Queen herself was against slavery. She was against the pain and suffering, however, that your brothers inflicted on the indigenous people of that land. You yourself decided to use that same type of labor tactic to enforce what you needed to enforce to get those natives to do what you wanted to do, rather than allowing them to have time to embrace what you were trying to do.
And did you not have the same hate yourself before you went to Mecca and saw a different way?
I wouldn't say it was hating so much, it was being hypnotized. It was being not brainwashed, but reprogrammed. Having just come out of prison, having found a savior in the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he gave me something to grasp onto, to lift myself up, to educate myself, to understand that I was better than what I was told I was. Ever since my junior high school teacher told me that I would never do anything that I wanted to become because I was a nigger. I disagreed with that. And when I was in prison, having been Detroit bred, having broken crimes, having robbed and pillaged people, as Chris himself did at one time, I realized the error of my ways in 1965 when I took a pilgrimage to Mecca and saw the world for what it really was. I believe that it was important to be an internationalist as opposed to a separatist, as I had earlier stated.
I remember that very well, actually.
So, at least from what I've read about you, you definitely were at a point where you don't believe in separation anymore. You came to that point.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because in the Native American culture, we believe in sharing.
Absolutely.
And everyone's not separate. We're all equal. we're all equal.
Understanding where the Nation of Islam was born, I'm taken out of Islam, in Africa where there was communal living. There was not capitalism. There was not a hoarding of resources.
Right.
There was the spreading of wealth. There was the community living and sharing, the socialization of a village.
Now, Brother Malcolm, we are going to take a break, and we want to come back and have this discussion about communalism versus colonialism. I think that's an important conversation for us to have. So we'll be back in one moment. Thank you. Welcome back to Conversations Across Time. Chief, before the break, there was a sense, I had a sense that there was something that you wanted to say. Now, we're talking about what happened to your people. So you're speaking for Native Americans.
Right.
And you did hear, I mean, these are two strong gentlemen. Christopher Columbus and Brother Malcolm, they are strong gentlemen. But we need to know from you, as a Native American, how you feel about what you're hearing.
Well, the first thing, I was glad to hear the conversation between these two, so I can bring my part out. And what I see is that no matter what Malcolm says, what Columbus says, they have not lived the Native American life. The Native American life was affected since Christopher came over in the Caribbean.
So it was an impact after
It's an impact, but the impact was just the beginning, because the whole idea was everything is being done from the Pope and God. And it's right to take someone's land and say, I claim this land, and you do not matter. You will do what we tell you to do. We will cut your hair. We will take your kids, throw them in the ocean. We would rape them. We would take the men and enslave them as much as possible until they die off, and then put a replacement of people and go out and find more people from Africa who replace us. Okay, that was in the Caribbean. Now when you come to the United States, where we are right now, North America and South America, the problem here is that it continued when they kept coming in for more land and using that right of God, saying, if you don't follow our religion, we can kill you, we can enslave you. And it went all the way through the country. It went from North America to South America. It just didn't stop, all the way into Hawaii.
May I ask this? How did you, I certainly know that there were different groups,
Yes.
different indigenous people, and different indigenous populations. But how did you, as a descendant of the Iroquois, feel about the fact that someone was going to impose their notion of God upon you?
Well, even to this day, most of us still can reflect and see that we had spent so much time listening to someone else's God. The vision, the pictures of their God doesn't match the pictures of other people's God. We believe in God. We believe in the Great Spirit. We believe that we have a right to our land, and they have a right to be visiting and sharing the land with us.
Chief, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
How, looking back though, how angry were you at the colonialists? For one, they brought smallpox to you. Smallpox decimated your people.
Measles.
Right.
And
The
measles. And it allowed them to run roughshod over those indigenous folks,
Yeah.
because now your population
But
is
of course,
decimated.
they gave us syphilis.
Let me tell you, with everything that happened, with the anger that we all have as Native American people, even today, because sometimes, right now, it seems like we do not exist. When they talk about things or cultures, Native Americans is hardly mentioned. It's almost like we're a thing of the past. People think we're riding horses all day still. But what happened is with my family, let me finish, with my family, because I'm not going to go to every Native American tribe.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you with my family, there came to a point that when the United States government was set up, they had two choices for Native Americans or Indians back then. You became a tax-payable Indian or you become a reservation Indian. My family became tax-payable Indians. And a lot of people don't know that because everything is still stereotyped about Native Americans. We're woodland Indians. We became farmers. We made our own way. We decided to build our communities again. Yeah, it wasn't the same amount of property and everything that we had before, and we didn't really believe in property because everyone has a right to live on land. Everyone.
But did you think that Christopher Columbus, and all of the people who followed him from Europe, did they have the same notion of sharing land that the Native American people?
They should have, but they didn't because of greed. Resources. That's all they wanted. Take over every piece of land. We had said to them, these are the things that we have said. We have said, there's more than enough land for everyone. More than enough food for everyone. We taught, wait a minute, let me finish. We taught Europeans how to farm. A lot of people don't know that.
Yes.
They think farming was just developed by Europe. We taught the Europeans how to farm. We taught the Pilgrims how to survive. Because if we didn't help the Pilgrims, they were never made it the following year.
But in full total disclosure, one of the things that Columbus did bring were European horses, which turns you from a nomadic people to a hunting people. You have to give them credit for
Well, we've always been hunting.
That was not a good development.
The horse was
not a good development.
But you have to remember, it depends where you were. Everyone started using horses. Matter of fact, let me tell you, even with the Cherokees, we started wearing more of the European clothes and mixing our clothes up. We started educating ourselves because that's the way we had to survive. That's the way we knew we could
Some people
come together in this
would
country.
argue the horse changed much Native American society from one that was matriarchal, sharing, nutrition and nutritive, into one that was masculine, warlike,
Right.
and destructive.
Now, what happens?
That's what the horse did.
Now, you have to remember, too, that in our society, Native American society, the female had a voice and power.
But
This is very important because what happens is if we ended up in a war with anyone, if someone comes and says, the French come to one tribe and say, we want you to fight the English, we want you to fight the Spanish. The ladies, the clan mothers, okay, I don't know about all other cultures, but I know about my culture. The clan mothers would sit down and talk with the men and say, all right, if you end up dying, who's going to take care of your wife and your kids? Everything is put together for us to remain as a society, okay? When the men were dying off, the Native American men were dying off, the Native American females were also marrying African men, correct?
I would agree with that.
You agree?
Sure.
Okay? That's to repopulate or to build up the group of Native Americans, even though they're mixed. But the thing is, in this country, and I'm saying it right now, things have changed, but not to the point where we can understand each other.
Well, I want you to put a pin in it, and this is the reason. Because that brings up something very interesting. The change that the horse made upon the Native American population is significant. If it went from being a matriarchal society to becoming
a more or less peaceful society to becoming a warlike society, and the horse did that. Of course, the Europeans attacking them all the time
We had to go to war. I mean, there was no choice.
There was no choice. But I also want to understand, do you, Mr. Columbus, see the plethora of problems that were created as a result of your landing in the Americas?
Well, mostly the way they treated people, they found, not just the landing.
But he did indeed, not to cast too many aspersions upon our good friend Chris here, you did indeed open up trade with other countries because of the routes you took, even though many times you took those or found those routes by accident or thought you were someplace other than where you really were.
And I suspected there was land, and we could get to this country by going this way. And that's what I thought. When I came back with the news and I said, yes, there is country here, throughout Europe, everyone was interested. You found another place to go. You found more land. You found different people. You found maybe some gold. But you found land, and everyone in Europe is talking about how wonderful to find this new land.
And why was it wonderful?
Because land is very important to us.
Because
land is wealth, and we were looking for wealth. Ferdinand and Isabella is looking for wealth.
And they didn't find enough of the gold and precious metals, but you're saying that they should have been at least
they were happy with land. They were happy with land to start, and we went back. I was 4 times to these islands, to this area, and we
did
found
damage 4 times.
I went 4 times, sir. I went 4 times to see and to look and to make sure that this works, that this is true, this is not
killing people.
This is 4 times I go on behalf of Spain and Ferdinand and Isabella and the Pope, and we find land. I find many good things. I bring things back. I bring things to.
Did you bring people back?
Yes.
Who did you bring back?
People I find there. We find people there with no clothing. We find people running naked all over the place. These are not civilized people.
That's civilized. Chris, European concepts. But based on where they were living, they were civilized enough for what they needed and what they wanted to do.
But I come from Europe. I come from Spain. I come with the Pope who says, you take these lands.
You live in a different climate.
At these people, and they're wearing nothing.
And this is probably this is probably a good point for us to end this discussion. And I will tell you why. Because it opens the door for so many questions. There is so much more that we have to ask, we have to understand about the mindset of colonialism. And I think Brother Malcolm hit upon something that was very important when he said, did they seem that they were unhappy to you? You said they had no clothes on. So according to European concepts, they were uncivilized. And also, I must say, the chief points out to you that what happened is you came to this country and created damage. You created much damage, and then I love my friend Babette because as a feminist, she brings something that's very close to my heart. She says, this was a matriarchal society before you arrived here with your horses and your European values. So I do look forward to us continuing this discussion because there's much more to say, and unfortunately time does not allow us to do that. But what I want to say to our audience is I thank you for joining us. I hope that you were enlightened and inspired by these conversations, because what we hear is that there's a lot more for us to discuss, and history is truly exciting. So please be sure to join us for our next episode, and we look forward to Brother Malcolm, Christopher Columbus, Chief Levy, and of course Babette Josephs rejoining us, and we will pick up this conversation again. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations Across Time. I am Vivienne Crawford, and I look forward to you joining us again.
Conversations across time, 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 conversations across time. conversations across time, 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 across time, conversations 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 across time.